This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
It was like a bomb drop, but then someone poured gasoline on everything and then lit a match.
It really feels like a movie.
Our adversaries and competitors are weaker.
Uncle Sam has had a kick me sign on his back for the last 4 years.
We're really seeing the wheels coming off and the unraveling of these irresponsible energy policies.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. The Santa Ana winds are about to pick up in California.
There's nothing. It's just destroyed. It's Armageddon.
It really feels like a movie.
Nothing prepares you for this amount of destruction. There's no manual. There's no book.
75 miles an hour by tomorrow morning for the fire-weary state.
Strategically pre-position engine strike teams and task forces, which are dedicated to rapid response for any new fire that breaks out.
CAL FIRE held a press conference this afternoon. Their teams are at the breaking point, pulling 40-hour-long shifts. 2 food trucks bonded together to feed the firemen.
Trying to provide food to the firefighters, making sure we have food almost 24 hours a day. So we have 2 food trucks.
Then the word got out, and by Thursday, more than 100 food trucks and restaurants bonded together to feed the firemen and the people who lost their homes. It's now turned into a food city, all free.
A lot of people are helping us out.
Back home, 8 Days of Hope, the Christian relief group out of Buffalo, says the fires are so bad that nearly a week out, they still can't send teams in with 14% containment.
It's just too dangerous of a situation. It was like a bomb drop, but then someone poured gasoline on everything and then lit a match. There is nothing there. And that's why the rebuilding of all these homes will not happen very quickly.
Founder Steve Tiber spoke with WBEN this morning. He says 8 Days of Hope is at the ready. Once it's safe for volunteers, they'll spend this week gathering resources so they can jump in.
There's no quick fix here. This is going to be a 2, 3 year, 4 year battle.
The fires blamed for 24 deaths and 1,200 homes and businesses leveled to the ground. President Biden gave a victory lap speech at the State Department today, chronicling what he calls the successes of his administration.
America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen.
But Republican Senator Tom Cotton says that's not quite how it went down. He says Biden's policies have harmed America's global standing.
Uncle Sam has had a kick me sign on his back for the last 4 years because of Joe Biden's weakness.
Cotton with the Senate Armed Services Committee.
In the Middle East, he tried to take credit for certain actions that Benjamin Netanyahu has taken, when in reality, at every turn, he tried to restrain Israel.
1 week from today, Donald Trump will take the oath of office. Washington, D.C. police say they're ready.
The men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department, D.C. government, and our partners are fully prepared for the 60th presidential inauguration.
Police Chief Pamela Smith said today unlawful behavior will not be tolerated.
Offenders will face swift and decisive consequences.
The Secret Service also on deck.
All attendees will undergo screening. Designated checkpoints will be set up.
Meanwhile, tomorrow, Trump's top cabinet picks get grilled on Capitol Hill. That includes the most controversial, his top choice for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Whether they have the information or not, there's still a lot of questions they're going to ask. They're going to ask about allegations of sexual misconduct. They're going to ask him, for example, are you facing any other lawsuits that we don't know about? Are you facing any other allegations that could interfere with your ability to run the largest military on earth?
Senate Majority Leader John Thune expects most will be confirmed.
The Democrat leader said that his caucus's approach to the Trump nominees would be, and I quote, fair but thorough. And I hope it will be fair. And we'll be ready to proceed whether or not Democrats choose to cooperate.
President-elect Donald Trump met with his first Senate Democrat over the weekend in Florida. It's a name that you know, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. Trump walked away calling the meeting fascinating, saying Fetterman is a common sense person. The Democratic senator says he's open to Trump's cabinet picks, saying, quote, that's how democracy works. News from the Middle East. A Gaza truce and hostage release news could happen in this final week of President Biden's term.
We are now at a pivotal point in the negotiations for a hostage deal and ceasefire in Gaza.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
It is in the American national security interest, regardless of party, to get this deal done.
Florida Congressman Corey Mills says Middle East policy will dramatically change starting January 20th.
Israel knows that President Trump is one who will stand by and support their right to defend themselves. Not like this administration right now, who has actually told them to cease fire, stand by, and step back.
A third of the 100 hostages are believed to be dead. The brightest comet of the new year will zip through our sky later today. G13 Atlas will be visible to the naked eye as it approaches the sun.
It's worth trying to see it because even if you can't see the core of the comet, you can see a tail from it. And that extends higher in the sky, so it gives you a longer amount of time after the sun sets.
It's the brightest comet in 20 years in our sky. It'll appear as bright as the planet Venus around sunset tonight. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, more green energy on the docket for the State of the State address in New York. Andrew Cuomo would win New York City mayor if the vote was now. And what happens to the Farm Show butter sculpture after it's torn down? We're going to take you straight to Harrisburg to find out after weather with Kevin Williams.
The cold is back following the passage of a cold front today. Here's the call. Overnight tonight through tomorrow, outside of lake effect areas, variable cloudiness with a few flurries or snow showers. But heavy lake effect snow, multiple inches accumulating tonight through tomorrow in areas east of Lake Ontario, well north of Syracuse, and east of Lake Erie, well south of Buffalo. Low temps tonight teens, and we're in the teens and low 20s tomorrow. Lake snow shifts a little north from the earlier locations Tuesday night and Wednesday. Otherwise, on Wednesday, clouds, sun, and flurries, brisk and cold with high temperatures mostly in the 20s.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories, making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. I love what he said there, shivering and shoveling. That about sums it up. No rest for the weary in those lake belts. Up to 2 feet of snow is possible downwind of Lakes Erie in Ontario.
This is going to be a protracted period of snow that will go all the way through Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even to Thursday night.
Meteorologist Josh Nichols, he says travel will be difficult, if not impossible at times in the most persistent snow bands of Oswego and Oneida counties in central New York. We are a day out from Governor Kathy Hochul's State of the State address. Donald Trump already promising to reverse congestion pricing in New York City that just went into effect because of Hochul. We're learning a little more about tomorrow's speech. She'll lay out more of her green energy plans. Western New York Senator George Borrello says Republican opposition continues to build.
We're really seeing the wheels coming off and the unraveling of these irresponsible energy policies that were created essentially by radical advocates and special interest groups.
Borrello points to numerous all-electric school bus proposals which voters rejected last year. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo dominates the Democratic mayoral field in New York City, even though he hasn't formally entered the race. A decision is expected next month. The disgraced ex-governor gets 32% of the vote, according to a new third-party poll. Current Mayor Eric Adams gets just 6%. The Democratic primary is in June. Pennsylvania's newest U.S. senator is weighing in on his top legislative priorities for 2025.
Closing the border, stopping the flow of fentanyl, extending the middle-class tax cuts, bringing law and order to our cities, and unlocking energy. And so those are the things that are front of mind for me, the things that are going to make the biggest difference for Pennsylvania.
Republican Dave McCormick. And the 1,000-pound butter sculpture at the Pennsylvania Farm Show is no more. It was taken apart by 4-H kids yesterday in about 2 hours.
It's very interesting to see how they construct it, knowing that it's not all butter. There's little pieces inside.
When you get closer to the wood and the styrofoam stuff, it gets harder. But at first, it's kind of just scraping.
All that butter won't go to waste, though. Brett Reinford is a dairy farmer in Juniata County.
At our farm, we have a big giant tank that we heat to 100 degrees. Inside that tank is where we put the butter, where it melts down into a liquid form. and it produces a gas called methane that we're able to capture all of it and run it into a motor that's on our farm that powers homes in our community.
This year's butter cow used for electricity, not a pound wasted. Next at 5, today's Family Life News feature, the Reverend Mark Kiesling is the youth ministry coordinator for 1.7 million teenagers with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Today, he lays out a strategy of 7 key points that are effective with today's teens. Let's listen in.
We really developed around what we saw key relationships in congregations and a little bit maybe what was an environment that churches had. And that was one thing that we call was warmth, challenge, and grace, and where congregations welcomed young people into relationship, really helped them find the place where they belong in the church. We talk about challenge from 2 standpoints, is that one, the older generation cared enough about the young people to be able to say, like, maybe if there were questions about lifestyle or life decisions, that someone would step in and say, like, hey, this is what's God pleasing in this situation, to teach them God's word. But then also too, as young people are starting to learn about their gifts and they're looking to maybe stretch their legs a little bit and try new things, how can the church be a supportive group of people that encourage them to do that in their walk with Christ as well? And then certainly we talk about the grace of God in Jesus Christ. And so that there is forgiveness in the church, there's forgiveness in our families, there's forgiveness in relationships, and how that creates a pattern for everyday life. And then we saw this play out in engaged parents, which were parents involved in the life of their young people and caring for their spiritual life. What we called supportive adults, those could be pastors or those could be members of congregations that took the initiative to build relationships with young people and to support them in their walk. And then we saw a great piece that happened for young people when they were given opportunities to serve and lead. And sometimes that was in the context of the church and to understand, again, how God's using them to talk about the gospel and talk about Jesus with their friends and author maybe with new people that they are meeting on every day of their life.
You talking about the youth who are putting their faith in action. I wonder if you're seeing that is happening in this particular generation.
We definitely see that. How do we equip them through the study of God's word and connect them? Roles in life that God has placed you as a child, as a friend, as an athlete, as a student, as a musician, whatever it may be, that how has God given you gifts and abilities, and how are you able to show God's love in word and deed with your neighbor? God has given us a spirit that we're able to respond in love in those times too. And so how we can channel that and have great conversations with young people about how are those ways we go out and show Christ's light into the world. And some really amazing things can happen when we both educate them, but then also give them those opportunities to go out and serve.
You can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing mixed as tech shares pulled back. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 358 points to 42,297. The S&P 500 rose 9 points to 5836, and the NASDAQ fell 73 points to 1988. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Proverbs 20 verse 11 reads, "Even a child makes himself known by his acts, by whether his conduct is pure and upright." I'm Rob West with your Faith and Finance Minute. Of course, we all want our children to be pure and upright in their walk with Christ, and that certainly includes how they manage money. Children need to learn that you work hard for the money that supports the family and that you're not an ATM machine. They also need to work to receive material rewards and the satisfaction that comes from doing a job well. They need to learn to budget, spend carefully, save, and most importantly, be generous. The most effective way to teach your children these principles is to live them out yourself. Thankfully, the Bible is an incredible guide on the topic. Connect with a certified Kingdom advisor who's been trained to deliver financial advice that aligns with your Christian values by visiting our website, faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, the dog that survived the fire and was found in the most unusual way in California. That story after weather with Kevin Williams.
We urge caution traveling the next 12 to 18 hours and watch the thruway well south of Buffalo heading through the Pennsylvania border, as well as watch I-81 well north of Syracuse. Those areas going to get buried. Outside of lake effect, patchy clouds will have moonlight and sunlight as well in time and scattered flurries. Low to 19s, the high temperature Tuesday, mid-teens to mid-20s. On Wednesday, brisk winds, cold. The lake snow will shift south, focusing more in northwest Pennsylvania off Lake Erie and more in central New York, including Syracuse and Utica off Lake Ontario. Elsewhere on Wednesday, clouds, sun, and flurries and high temperatures, mainly in the 20s.
Okay, Kevin, we will take it. Finally, at 5, a Palisades fire survivor returned to his house after 5 days over the weekend to find that his dog had made it through alive and waited there in the rubble until his return. The joy in the man's voice overwhelming. He picked the pooch up and ran through the neighborhood shouting with glee.
You're alive! Oh, honey! Oh, whoa! 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 Yeah! Yeah!
The pup, completely unharmed, had sat in the smoldering ash of the burnt-down house for nearly a week, waiting for his dad to come home. The man thanking God that his most precious pup survived.
Yes! Oh, thank you, Jesus!
Blessings from a God who doesn't forget anything. And that's the world that we live in for Monday, the 13th of January. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.